Israel-Palestine conflict, unfolding ancient root cause, Part 1. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a multifaceted and deeply rooted issue that spans thousands of years. Its origins are intertwined with religious, historical, political, and socio-economic factors. Here's a brief overview of the ancient roots of the conflict. Religious significance. Both Jerusalem and the broader land of Israel-Palestine, which includes Judea, Bethlehem, Dome of the Rock, and other biblical places, hold significant religious importance for Jews, Christians, and Muslims. For Jews, it's the land promised to Abraham and his descendants by God and the site of the ancient First and Second Temples. For Christians, it's where Jesus was born, crucified, and resurrected. For Muslims, Jerusalem was the Qibla, or the direction of prayers before it was moved to Mecca. And it's the site of the al-Axa mosque and the Dome of the Rock, from where Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven, referred to as the event of Miraj. At the same time, Abraham and other critical prophets are the same in Judaic, biblical, and Islamic contexts. Israelites, who represent present-day Jews, regard the promise to Abraham passed through his son Isaac, while Ishmaelites, who represent present-day Arabs, consider Ishmael as Abraham's elder son, keeping their ancestral lineage to Abraham. It is also logical to assume that over thousands of years, the ancient generation of Abraham descended into the mix of today's Jews, Christians, Muslims, and maybe even more. In that context, even if the claim goes to all of them, the notion of claim stays separate between Ishmaelites and Israelites, which plays a significant role in this conflict. Ancient history. The land has been inhabited and controlled by various groups over millennia. Ancient Israelites established kingdoms there, which were later conquered by various empires like the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans. After the Jewish diasporas, the land saw a significant decrease in Jewish population, and other groups settled there. Medieval periods. Over the centuries, the land was controlled by a succession of empires, including the Byzantines, early Islamic caliphates, Crusaders, Ayyubids, Mamluks, and the Ottomans. Throughout these shifts in power, religious sites were often a focal point of control and reverence. We will talk more about those early stages in later parts, but let's turn to relatively recent history for a while in this video. By the late 19th century, the Zionist movement began promoting the idea of a national homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. At the same time, Arab nationalism was on the rise, with residents of the region aspiring for self-determination. The Balfour Declaration in 1917 by the British supported the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The decision by the British government was influenced by a combination of factors. Here are some of the reasons. Religious and cultural sympathies. British officials and public figures supported the idea of a Jewish homeland in Palestine due to Christian beliefs about the return of Jews to the Holy Land. This is connected to interpretations of biblical prophecies. The idea of restoring Jews to Palestine had been a theme in certain British Christian circles even before the rise of political Zionism. Zionist lobbying. The Zionist movement, led by figures like Chaim Weizmann, lobbied extensively in Britain and other countries for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Weizmann, a chemist, had even assisted the British war effort during World War I, which gave him some influence in British political circles. Strategic interests. The British Empire had strategic interests in the Middle East, particularly in safeguarding access to the Suez Canal in neighboring Egypt, a vital link to British colonies in Asia and Africa. By supporting a Jewish homeland under British influence in Palestine, Britain could secure a friendly population in a region of importance. World War I diplomacy. During World War I, Britain was looking for ways to garner support from various communities and entities against the Central Powers. Supporting Zionist aspirations was seen as a way to secure Jewish support, particularly in Russia and the United States, for the Allies. Views on Jews, the Ottoman Empire, and British imperial strategy. At the time, Jews were indeed a minority in Palestine, which was part of the Ottoman Empire. The British, along with the French, were looking to diminish Ottoman control in the region during and after World War I. The establishment of new political entities under European influence was part of this objective. The Ottomans had controlled Palestine for several centuries, since the early 16th century. During World War I, the British and their allies were at war with the Central Powers, which included the Ottoman Empire. As the war progressed, British forces, aided by the Arab Revolt, led by Sharif Hussein of Mecca and his sons, including the famous Thomas Edward Lawrence, or Lawrence of Arabia, pushed northwards through the Arabian Peninsula and Transjordan, eventually capturing Jerusalem in December 1917 and continuing their campaign in Palestine and Syria. By the end of World War I in 1918, the Ottoman Empire was defeated, and its territories in the Middle East were divided between the victorious British and French powers based on the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret 1916 treaty that had outlined spheres of influence in the region. The League of Nations subsequently granted Britain the Mandate for Palestine in 1920, formalizing British control over the territory. In summary, at the time of the Balfour Declaration in 1917, Palestine was still technically under Ottoman control, but it was being actively contested in the war and would soon come under British control. Stay tuned for Part 2, where we will discuss how the Arab world reacted to the Balfour Declaration. Does the Balfour Declaration consider the interests of the current inhabitants and ethnic groups of that region? Or is the sole purpose of this declaration to meet the political and diplomatic interests of the British and French and the way to pay back the assistance they received during World War I? Why did the British have the mandate to determine the fate of Arab nations or the Middle East? And even if they had the mandate, could they include their religious obligation or interest to decide the fate of another deeply motivated religious nation? Especially when there were historical records of religious clashes concerning that region, they were once active participants. Smash that like button and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Ancient Narrator's channel to plunge deeper into history's enigma. Your next quest to ancient knowledge awaits.